I'm a tyranny buster, and in case you don't know what that's all about, it's based on Thomas Jefferson's quote of where he stated something to the effect that he swore an eternal hostility on the altar of God over every form of tyranny upon the mind of man. It's talking about mind control and that effect. And then tyranny over the mind is a little bit different than tyranny over the body, because tyranny over the mind is taking control of the mind versus taking control of the body. And because we're free will sentient beings, for them to take control of our mind, they have to do it, and they are the people I refer to as the controllers. And it can be anybody who wants to control you by lies, deceit, fraud, and of course other means. But for them to do it, you have to not be aware of the fact that your mind's being controlled. And today we're going to talk about the tyranny of the California Fair Political Practices Commission. And just that name alone ought to embark feelings of certain uneasiness and distress that people feel when they're facing tyranny. Now, the California Fair Political Practice Act, they have their rules, and they have this is amazing to me, and people will say, well, you know, what's wrong with that? Because that's one of them acronyms like the Military Commission Act or the Patriot Act or the Affordable Health Care Act. But they're certainly all based in tyranny, government taking a power or an authority it doesn't have a right to take. But of course, most people let the government get away with all these tyrannies because the particular tyranny does not affect them. How many people does the tyranny of the California Fair Political Practice Commission affect? Well, first off, you got your Democrat and your Republican politicians who passed this. So they are under the guise of security, and under the guise of security over liberty. Of course, over liberty. Obviously, it's not liberty over security. And they're going to protect us from the bad boy politicians. Those of us who know better, who are disenfranchised from the Democrats and the Republicans, those of us who know that they're not protecting us from anything. In fact, they're abusing us. Let's get into what the heart of this matter is. It has to do with a form filing requirement, and it has to do with something that recently has come up with the Libertarian Party. Now, let's see, hopefully I didn't lose the email on this. I think it's right over here. And click on it. And there it is. Okay, so the California, and they have these rules, this California Fair Political Practice Committee or Commission or whatever it is. And this is what they define it as. Or never mind what they define it as. We'll go right into the heart of the matter here. There's this form, and it says, it starts off, it's a Form 410, and I'll show you a copy of that. Let's see if we can switch back on the computer that easily with this screen sharing thing here, little technology. Here's your 410, and I might even be able to read off of it. Okay, so hopefully that's being shared on your screen right now. If not, no matter. It says on the form where to file. Now, statement of organization, recipient committee. And of course, one would have to be that before they'd have to file. Now, and then it goes on to when to file. File this form within 10 days of receiving $1,000 in contributions. Include a $50 payment made payable to the Secretary of State. So that's a tax. They're charging you a tax. Well, they force you to file a form. after receiving $1,000 contributions. Now, of course, who does this apply to? It says when to file here. It doesn't apply to the church, right? The church doesn't have to fill out a California Form 410 practice form, all right? And then pay a $50 fee tax to file this form. And it says annually, no later than January 15th. Okay, so a lot of people that are involved in politics, they're assuming they have to pay this thing. And it says, in addition to if you're later than that date, there'll be a penalty of $150. Now it says it may be assessed. Isn't that nice? So they may let you off the hook, the tyrants. For early submissions, mark the not yet qualified box. All right, now we go over to who files. It says persons, including an officer or candidate organization, groups, or other entities that raise contributions from others totaling $1,000 or more in a calendar year to spend on California elections. They qualify as a recipient committee. They must register with the Secretary of State and report all receipts, contributions, include monetary payments, loans, and non-monetary goods and services received or made for a political purpose. Well, key word over here, to spend on California elections. And I want to switch back to my email. I don't know if I have to switch back on the screen there. You can look at that California 410 form if you like. And so who files? But the key is to spend on California elections. You have to raise $1,000 or more and file if you're going to spend on California elections. Well, quite frankly, it's none of their business anyways. Why is it any of their business? And to convert something like this, your political freedom of speech is one of your greatest political freedoms, right up there with your religious freedom of speech or freedom of the press. And why is it maybe even more important than that? Because it protects that. Now, of course, they're saying here that you don't have that if you're running for political office. You lose your right of political freedom of speech and your right to be secure in your papers and whatnot. And your business is your business. Not only is that the case with the candidates or the committees, but that's the case with those people who contribute. Guess what? They contribute $100 or more. Well, this has an absolute chilling effect on liberty. Now, let's take the Libertarian Party. Now, Democrats and Republicans, not such big a thing to them, not such a big a deal. You know, they are not calling for the dismantling of things like the California Fair Political Practice Commission tyranny. So, you know, somebody's name on that form doesn't bother the Republicans and Democrats so much. Well, another thing about that too as well is that, you know, we're complaining about the Patriot Act and the warrantless spying on every American. What is this if it's not spying? And it's forcing political activists to file a form turning in the names and addresses of those people who support their political ideology or philosophy. Now, what if you're a Democrat or Republican again? Not so bad, because most of you support statism, the gargantuan nanny state, police state, et cetera, et cetera. But what if you're a libertarian? Well, you're a little bit scared. You don't support all of that. And you're required to turn in to all of that, your personal information. Maybe you are a patriot who believes in freedom and not the tyranny of Leviathan state, but you're scared. So what do? You do not contribute to the cause of liberty. Can you imagine our founding fathers having to report to the Federal Election Commission or King George's Fair Political Practice Commission? It's unbelievable. But of course, most people don't care about this because they're not Jewish. What do you mean they're not Jewish? What are you bringing up that for? Well, that's how Hitler started. Most people didn't care what was going on because they weren't Jewish. So most people don't care about this tyranny either. All right, now going on down a little bit longer, but keep in mind that even with all of that tyranny, if you're a candidate or if you're a political party that spends on California elections, that's what the requirement is to file and send in this form and this information. It's that you spend more than $1,000 on California elections. I've run for Congress several times, and the Federal Election Commission has a rule. You have to spend $5,000 or more to be considered a candidate. They have the same tyranny, the Federal Election Commission, set up by Democrats and Republicans. And now I'm starting to get a little bit peeved at my friends who are in those particular parties and thinking they can change them from inside. And basically, they're condoning this kind of tyranny. So what's going to happen when the bureaucrats at the at the California Fair Practice Commission, they learn that I've done this video? They're not going to be happy. Maybe they're going to try to figure out a way to do something, because I'm calling for their termination, not execution, termination from employment. Yeah, because what they are is little tyrants. They're little tyrants going out suppressing the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness of ordinary Americans. And they're mandating that the people that run for political office stool pigeon on those people that support them. And of course, what about these forms being a matter of public record? Public record, well, let's say the Prison Guard Association, they're not going to like us libertarians because we want to end all these victimless crimes where people are prosecuted and put in prison because their drug of choice doesn't happen to meet up and match up with the alcohol association or the pharmaceutical association. And so numerous agencies and agents of government have access to these reports. So the type of committee, controlled central committee A, controlled number, whatever, they go on. Now, in the treasurers, if you're a treasurer of the San Diego Libertarian Party or a small party, then, and you could be held personally liable, well, you're going to be kind of scared about all this. Maybe you say, well, really, it's not worth it. Why should I volunteer? We're just a little political party here, and there's no chance anyways. It's like the Russian Politburo. You can choose Communist A or Communist B. So now even people in the Libertarian Party have jumped on the bandwagon, and they want to enforce this tyranny because they're scared. And it is tyranny. Okay, some of these political parties have spent that much money on candidates, and maybe they have to comply with this nonsense. But no, they don't have to, of course. And it makes me just want to throw in the towel too, even trying to fight the tyranny, because the tyranny won't let you fight it because it makes all these rules against it. But if you're not raising or spending more than, if you're not spending more than $1,000 for political campaigns, candidates, or initiatives, then by their own rules, it does not apply. And the rest of it is as much tyranny as the first part. And maybe it's not the same kind of tyranny. It's because it's not a tyranny upon the mind. But when people are led to believe by the bureaucrats that this section somehow applies to those folks that don't raise money for that purpose, for a candidate or for a ballot initiative, that's tyranny upon the mind of man. I don't know. I could go on and on with this, and maybe that's enough. I don't know. I've got stuff laid out here, but I really don't feel like going any further on this tyranny. I know you're not standing up. I know yet it really doesn't affect you because, well, you're not Jewish. But this is tyranny no matter what. Tyranny wherever we face it. We need to stand up and say no. And one person can do that. Rand Paul stood up against the tyranny of the Patriot Act. Now, is that battle done? No. And I'm not saying I'm a Rand Paul fan because I've seen him up there supporting tyranny. Okay, so but this is where we've got to start working on this stuff, folks. Or you're going to just get whatever you deserve to get. Now, when someone like me says, "Hey, those people that were the victims of the tyranny of Hitler, Stalin, Mao, Pol Pot," you know, to some degree they were, because how many of those people they weren't the victims? They were responsible for their own demise, their own misfortunes, their own suppressions, because they did not fight the tyranny when it was small enough to fight it. It's small enough to fight it here in the United States, but it's big enough that pretty soon it may be too late to fight it. So this is Mike Benoit with Tyranny Busters. This is all for now. This is enough to make me tired just expressing this abomination. This Federal Political Practice Commission, or the Federal Election Commission, this is more unbelievable than you can imagine. Can you imagine the United States of America having more layers of government, more tyranny than any other country on the planet? We certainly imprison more people. So who's going to stand up and say, hell no, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore?